girlfriend of a Boston police officer whose body was found
in the murder trial of Karen Reed after the jury said it was unable to
they
reach
will
a
retry
verdict.
Karen Reed
is
after a judge declared
Welcome back to the jury room for day 11 of the Karen Reed retrial. Well, don't you worry. I am here to spare you the endless sidebars, what was today, and the mind-numbing testimony. Seriously, I thought today, how do these jurors do it? At least I can multitask and do laundry, pace around the house, snack a little bit. But these jurors are sitting on chairs all day long, jotting down notes. Well, actually, I heard only a couple of them are jotting down notes. I don't know if that should be concerning or not, but I kind of thought so for a second. But maybe they're the note takers. We kicked off today with a fresh set of witnesses called by the Commonwealth. And of course, we had a sidebar before any of them could get started. I mean, can a sidebar be a real bar? Because it's 5 o'clock somewhere. Just saying. First up, Trooper Connor Keefe. Not to be confused with O'Keefe. That was a bit confusing for me at first, but one of them is probably Irish and the other one, well, I don't know. Man, I'm in a mood today, I swear. Okay, Trooper Keefe. He's a state trooper assigned to the Norfolk District Attorney's Office. He works in the homicide unit as a digital forensic examiner. He was at the time in 2022 relatively new to the job. He was questioned about his experience compared to Trooper Proctor, who he worked under. When he was asked if he had more experience than Trooper Proctor, he actually said not necessarily. I mean, dude, check your ego. I hope your boss has more experience than you do, especially if you're the new kid on the block. However, Trooper Proctor did lose his job and this guy didn't, so there might be something to say to that. Okay, Keefe met Carrie Roberts and Jen McCabe to obtain their cell phones. He also conducted some forensic extractions on their phones. He was also assigned to assist the scene at 34 Fairview Road, collecting and bagging evidence. Prosecutor Brenner displayed exhibits on the projector that included the Nike shoe in the snow and asked Keefe if he was the one that collected that evidence. He said he was, and he did bring it to the court that day. Well, he put on some gloves and he presented us with the shoe that came out of a brown paper bag, not to be mistaken with the Stop and Shop bag. No, this was a full-on evidence bag, said evidence written right across the front of it in, a printed material, not just handwriting evidence. It also had red tape on it, which means it is sealed. However, what Margot would say, it's still loosey-goosey. You can take that tape off at any time, but definitely better than the Stop and Shop bag with solo cups. However, the seal, it definitely can be broken and resealed. It's not like a bag of chips where you open it up and it can never be resealed airtight again. Okay, Keefe mentioned that the bag had written logs on it for when somebody was to open the bag, look at the evidence, and then reseal the bag. He pulled out the shoe. He also pulled out 2 pieces of taillight from that bag and then an additional piece of taillight. He specifically said that he had only put 2 pieces of taillight into that evidence bag, and it was kind of glossed over on how the third piece got in there, but obviously it did. We will also know later on that they found over 40 more pieces of taillight that will come into play at some point, but this bag specifically only had 3 pieces. Defense attorney David Yannetti began his cross-examination on Keefe with focusing on McCabe's cell phone. Now, Keefe confirmed that he requested McCabe's phone and she handed it over. She signed a consent form on February 2nd, 2022 at 12:08. Yannetti also inquired about an interview that Keefe did with Trooper Proctor with Sarah Levinson in October of 2022. Remember, Sarah came on the stand a couple weeks ago. She was just a party goer at the party that night. She was kind of mild-mannered and said everything was copacetic at the party. There was nothing crazy going on. There was no fights, and she would have known because she was pretty with it that night. Well, Keefe did not remember interviewing Sarah. He was then given some documentation and said, oh yes, I do remember now, but he wasn't the one that wrote the report, so I guess he kind of forgot about it. Keefe was also tasked with retrieving videos from the bars that Reed and O'Keefe visited that night. Despite collecting all this evidence, he admitted that he had no involvement in reviewing the footage or writing any of the reports. I mean, this really suggests that this guy is a low man on the totem pole, in my opinion. However, there was one place that he was put that I think maybe somebody a little more senior could have been placed, and that's in the autopsy room. Keefe was present during the autopsy. Yannetti questioned whether Dr. Irene Scorby, her name is a little bit weird, it's Irene Scorby-Bello. She was the one that performed the autopsy. So Yannetti questioned whether Dr. Scordini-Bello was briefed by Proctor or Keefe before performing this autopsy, basically saying like, did you guys give her any knowledge on how you think the crime occurred, or if it was a crime at all? Keefe said, they didn't give that kind of info, but she was briefed on what had happened to John O'Keefe. He recalled also observing O'Keefe's black eyes, saying that both his right and left eye were black. He also had a gash above his eye, one of his eyes, and his nose had an abrasion. Then he was questioned about these arm scratches. Well, prosecution objected repeatedly on this fact, which in my mind, the jury hasn't seen any photographs of these arm scratches at this point, and I'm assuming that they will be allowed into evidence this time around, just like they were allowed last time, but we haven't gotten there. And so prosecution didn't want to get there at this point. Prosecution said objection, and so the defense kind of had to skirt around this issue. They were able to kind of get there a little bit and say, did you see, some damage on the arm? Yes. Did you see if his arm was broken? He said he was not medical personnel to give any kind of diagnosis on a broken arm. They asked if he saw any bruising on John O'Keefe's arm, to which he said he doesn't recall. Then after Keefe's testimony, the jury took a bit of a break, and the prosecution and defense kind of battled it out on the next witness and what was going to be admissible to question her on. Now, since we are the alternates and we are not privy to this information, I'm going to gloss right over it here, but I will tell you it's nothing that I think really was necessary. So let's move on to Jessica Hyde. Jessica Hyde is a digital forensic expert. Now, I know I thought that the weather guy was a snooze fest. I almost prefer learning about weather than learning more about cell phone data extraction. You guys are lucky that I'm here to listen to her entire testimony and just give you what you actually need to hear, because it felt like we were beating a dead horse today. Hyde was asked to examine the Safari deletions, the deleted phone calls. These are all on Jennifer McCabe's phone. She also was to address, and really what she was definitely there to address, was the infamous 227 or 624 Google search, house to die in the cold. She emphasized that the timestamp, that was 227, reflects when the tab is open and not when the search was conducted. Does this sound familiar? That's because, remember, Ian Whiffen from Celebrite already also said all the same things that Sarah Hyde said today. Well, I guess they just wanted to really hone in on that fact that this search was done at 6:24. So she was able to kind of go over all of her data extraction and the way that she was to collect it, and she had charts and whatnot to show that she was very credible and she was very thorough, and the way that she extracted her data is definitely the right way to do it. She also teaches classes at college, so, she is the expert. She also went into some analogy with some metaphors about being at a diner and how when you order a food that comes out that is a mistake, the waitress brings the mistaken food back to the back, technically saying she deleted the food, but the food's not actually deleted. It's still in the back kitchen. So I don't know. She kind of lost me with the pancakes and the food and the wrong dish. And I think she lost everybody at this point. I'm sure the jury was like, just get me to lunch already. Ultimately, what the prosecution brought this girl up there for was to establish that there was no search at 2:20 whatever in the morning, that it happened after they found O'Keefe's body, and Hyde ultimately confirmed, yes, this is true. She also was asked about these deleted searches, and she said that that is inaccurate to say that it was deleted by the user because it just automatically deletes when phone has storage limitations. I do know that this happens because it has happened to me before. During cross-examination, defense attorney Alessi highlighted that Hyde had been paid by the prosecution for years. Like, this chick was hired in, I think, late 2022 by the prosecution, and she has been going over reporting since then. Also, there was a highlight on like how software changes over time. So, her reports needed to be updated. And so the prosecution has been paying her for this whole entire time. I think he's really insinuating that, of course, her testimony is going to be geared towards the prosecution because they're paying her. She held strong and was like, the data that I get is not for the prosecution or for the defense. It's just data. He then presented some data from Ian Whiffen that conflicted her timeline, showing the last interaction of John O'Keefe just minutes earlier than her reports. They really pressed her on this reporting and her accuracies. She says that, she has an excuse for it, and when timing is pulled and hashtags and cell phone data and health data and how you can interpret if the phone is moving or if it's moving when you're walking or in a car, all this stuff. Alessi also pressed her on other inaccuracies that she had on her report. Like, at some points she put Eastern Standard Time, and then at other points she puts Universal Time, or at some points she doesn't even determine if it's Pacific Time, Universal Time, Eastern Time. She just doesn't say. So it does look kind of, again, what I'm going to use Margot's term is loosey-goosey. She has, she says they're typos, which I can see. I think these reports are long and they're tedious. He also questioned her on this 5:07 phone call that McCabe made to her sister Coco, who is also Nicole. They call her Coco. Okay, Nicole lives at 34 Fairview Road, and McCabe called her at 5:07 in the morning. Hyde admitted that she did not discuss this call with the prosecutors and did not list the duration of this call. Alessi questioned her on this because there were durations of other calls, but this specific call did not have a duration attached to it. His questioning was kind of scattered. It was all over the place. It really, you could tell, was just trying to find anything they could that could discredit this witness. He also tried to bring up the timestamp debacle with Celebrite. And I think if you guys remember back to Margot's day when Celebrite actually changed and figured out this inaccuracy that they had. And so they have since removed this as of December 2024. So not that long ago, they fixed the technology. Well, he questioned her on this as well. And I just think this was trying to add some confusion, which he did a good job at. He then scrutinized how McCabe's phone was handled and collected and stored. And he had a good point. Like, they didn't put it on airplane mode. They didn't put it in bags that protected it from like being wiped or getting any downloads. They kind of just, again, collected it in a, who knows? I don't even know if they put it in a bag, maybe a Ziploc bag. And this isn't the correct protocol to collect a cell phone. It's not her fault. She didn't collect the cell phone. She actually just got the data photos from the phone. She didn't even get the actual phone. So she did say that it wasn't in best practices, which bolstered the defense's argument that the investigation has been mishandled. And then at the very end, we get to another clip from Karen Reed. I mean, this girl is on a roll.
Absolutely more than Jen McCabe. Jen McCabe, it's me or her. Either I'm going down, Jen, or you are.
Wow, okay, that was chilling. Basically, she's telling whoever she's talking to that it's either McCabe or her. And that is where the prosecution left the jury for the day, which I will say they did a good job. Okay, that is a wrap of day 11. The trial continues tomorrow with day 12. We are unraveling the complexities and we are adding new testimony. There will be a whole new set of witnesses tomorrow, and hopefully somebody that has a little bit more than just data collection of cell phones. I think we're done with cell phone collection at this point. Tomorrow you will see Margot, and I will be back next week. If you love us and want to see us together, then you can join our Patreon. It's patreon.com/thealternate. And we are here every single week giving you a deep dive into what we actually think. You can hear our bias on that. We're going to try to keep it real clean on the regular podcast, but we'll get into it for you guys on our Patreon. Again, patreon.com/thealternate. And you guys, please rate and review us. Share us with a friend. Tell everybody you know. It's a quick little recap of what happened of the day, and you get it all from us here at The Alternates. Thanks for listening.